Hey guys, it's Jonathan McCormack. I'm an attachment specialist. You can find me at attachmenthealinghelp.com. And I'd like to talk about what it looks like if you were cured. Most people don't even think about that. But a good question to ask yourself is if you have attachment problems, anxiety, these things are preventing intimacy, what would it look like if you woke up tomorrow and were cured, if you took some magic pill? I like to ask that question to my clients and see what they say. Usually they say something like, well, I'd feel a lot better. I wouldn't feel anxious. I'd feel very secure. I wouldn't worry so much. I'd be able to, I'd feel happy, on and on and on. That doesn't help for a couple of reasons. First of all, your unconscious has no idea what any of that means. The unconscious is like a 4-year-old. You have to draw a picture of it. You have to show it something, you doing something. And also feelings are not a great way to measure things, because some weeks we're doing great, some weeks we're doing terrible. And I have a lot of clients and they're getting better, and then they hit 2 weeks where they do bad, and that's part of recovery. But in their minds, I'm going backwards. No. That's a detour. Your whole life will have detours. So what I like to ask is, what would it look like? In other words, how would you know you're cured? If another person, outsider, saw you, if I was talking to an outsider and they go, boy, so-and-so is a lot more secure than they were a year ago. And I said, oh, heck, how can you tell? How can you know? What do you notice them doing? What would they say? So actions, like for instance, if I was feeling anxious, I would tell my partner, I'd see myself sharing my emotions more. I'd see myself doing that. I might make requests. Can you please do this for me? I might see myself putting myself out there more, picking up the phone more, but very specific acts, because you want a vision. You have to know where you're going. That'll make things a lot quicker, and it'll give your mind a map of where you're trying to go, a picture. And at that point, one problem with recovery is that we're always thinking about what it looks like on a scale of 1 to 10 when we're perfect, when we're at 10. That's difficult because, first of all, people don't notice when they're changing. I mean, you've seen this. I've had countless friends who stop drinking, or they go into a 12-step program, or they pick up yoga or something. And boy, after a year or two, I notice some big changes. And I say, boy, you're a lot different now. And they always say the same thing. Really? I don't notice anything. Funny you say that, because my mother told me the same thing. And my partner also told me X, Y, and Z. Other people see it. We rarely see it. And if your mind doesn't think it's getting better, it might stay stuck, The other thing is that progress is slow. It's almost inevitably slow. And it's so slow that you might miss it. The third reason is if you have attachment problems, your mind is probably used to scanning for things going wrong. What am I doing wrong? What did I do wrong? What's going wrong? It's not scanning for the things that are happening correctly. Because when things happen correctly, it's like, okay, good. I don't have to bother with that. That's not a big deal. I don't have to worry about it. It happened fine. You just forget it, So whenever you see yourself doing something right, it's good to stop and really dwell in that feeling, practice feeling that, holding that in your mind. So usually I'll say something like, all right, scale 1 to 10. 10 is that perfect, Where are you, whatever, in your love life, Scale 1, let's say about a 4. Okay, forget about 10. What would it look like if it was a 5? Just what would it look like? Well, if it was a 5, I guess I would see myself asking for more time for myself. Or if it was a 5 and I was a little more secure, I would see myself, instead of arguing, actually asking the other person, like, well, why does this bother you? If I was more secure, I'd see myself, just little steps. Okay, write those down. Those are things you're going to look for, Another thing about recovery is the funny thing about change is you really don't change until you accept yourself as you are. It's a weird paradox. It's an irony. Carl Rogers used to talk about that. First, you accept yourself, and then the changes happen. It's hard to do that before then. And people with a lot of anxiety, they want to get rid of that anxiety. They just want that gone. Do you? First of all, you certainly want some anxiety. You know, there was a woman once who got brain damaged, and she had no anxiety at all. But the rest of her brain functioned perfectly. And of course, oh Lord, she got into all sorts of trouble because she had no anxiety. She'd be hooking up with strangers and doing this and doing that. No fear. And of course, that had terrible consequences. But besides that, there's a link. There is a link between, I don't know, things can get better, you can settle down, but there is a link to the way you are, even your anxiety, even your ugly parts, your bad parts, you know, and who you are as a person, you know. And oftentimes just giving up on some of these things, giving up completely on your anxiety, that would mean risking so much of what makes you, making your life meaningful, giving up these unique gifts, you know. I tell you, I see a lot of clients. Maybe I've been blessed, but I love every single one. And if I was in a crowd of like 200 people, probably my clients are the type of people I'd want to talk to. I just find them very interesting, very sensitive. How they think is unique, just all around fascinating, you know. And if they were to completely give up those imperfections, they wouldn't be themselves. You know, I get it. You don't want to the degree that's crippling you, obviously. But Tennessee Williams once said, you know, be careful about exercising your demons, lest you throw out your angels as well. That's something to think about. It's something to think about because it helps you accept who you are, even all those little demons, you know. People have different ideas about recovery. To me, recovery is a path. A lot of people don't like that. They want a destination. Tell me when I'm cured. Tell me when I'm fixed. I really don't believe in that. There are times where you'll be better. You know, I could do scale 1 to 10. You're at 5. Now you're at 6. Don't you see where you're at 7? But recovery is not supposed to save you from yourself. It's not supposed to solve your problems or make your relationships easy. It's not supposed to make you a different sort of person, a person who never feels pain, never feels anxiety. That's good news, though. That means you don't need to change who you are. Changes will happen, but the essence of you really don't need to change who you are. There's ways to accept it, to live with it, to prevent it from wrecking your life, to get more secure, obviously. But you really don't need to choose who you are. I think recovery, I see it as, the closest thing I can call it is a spiritual path. I call it that for a specific reason. And that's because, I've studied a lot of spiritualities. I've been in a lot of different traditions. And one thing that struck me about all of them practically is all of them would take an action and they would dedicate it. They dedicate to God or to the goodness, to the welfare of all living beings, or to this or to that, to the universe. And I thought, that's interesting. That's interesting. Before they do anything. Boy, imagine you did that before you make a phone call. I'm going to make this phone call to the best of the universe. I'm going to try and get this job. I'm going to go on this interview, and I'm going to do this for the well-being of all sentient creatures. Like, wow, that'd give you a certain kind of attitude, wouldn't it? And the second part, which was interesting, is all of them seemed to say, I will do that and do my best, and then I'll leave the results up to the universe, higher power, whatever. But I'm going to take my hands off the wheel at that point. I'm going to do what I can do and then just let things happen how they're going to happen. Why? I have no control over it. Yeah. Recovery has a lot of the same things in it, because in any recovery, you're probably going to be asked every day, to gently release a grip on what you don't have control over. That includes the intrusive thoughts. You don't control those. That includes a lot of your emotions. You don't control your emotions. You're not giving yourself these emotions. I don't know where they're coming from. Society, whatever, the social environment, childhood, I don't know. And instead of that, instead of focusing on the outcome, you're focusing on yourself. What you can do, and your willingness to feel the pain and move forward regardless. I'm going to go on this job interview, and I'm going to feel anxiety, and I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to let it make the decisions for me. So if you're planning on kind of a lifetime of good recovery, and most of the stuff's in Rajaee's book on Relationship OCD, but you can apply this to everything. But recovery in any sense, it's not going to be an absence of intrusive thoughts and feelings. That'll never happen. Those will be there. You don't have to react to them. They don't have to carry an emotional punch. They don't have to stick around for days and weeks, but they're going to be there. It's not having certainty. You'll always be in a place of uncertainty to a degree. It's not lifetime stability or consistency. So people will get into a really good place, and they'll be there for a couple months, and then they'll have not just a bad day, they'll have like a bad 2 weeks where, oh my Lord, why am I with this person? And my anxiety is killing me, and this and that and that. And hopefully the difference is they know, they can recognize, oh, these are just thoughts. You don't have to hold on to it. You can talk back to it. You can do various practices, and hopefully it won't really change anything. After 2 weeks, you're not going to break up with your partner, But this is the truth. We're humans. We get sick physically. You will get a cold. You might break your leg. You might have heart problems. Same thing with your psyche. You will have times where your psyche is not working functionally. That will happen. That will always happen, Rather, good recovery, it is sometimes having bad days and weeks. Some people even months, You can have bad weeks and still have very good recovery, Good recovery is a willingness. It's a willingness to experience that discomfort, Good recovery is knowing that when you have doubt, that's not necessarily the truth. You don't hold on to I don't know if I love my partner, or if this is the right choice, or I should get married. Okay. You don't know, so what? You don't have to be perfectly certain, Good recovery is accepting you don't have the answer, and you don't need to. You often don't need the answer, Good recovery is living according to your values, Even when you don't want to, The truth is, instead of a destination, recovery, being cured, it's more of an attitude, a kind of an openness. Openness towards what? Towards all the things we don't want. And openness to all the things we don't want about life. If I get into this relationship, I might get rejected. I'll be uncertain. I'll be confused. I will be. There'll be times when I'll be anxious. Can I be open to that? Is it worth it? Can I say, yes, anyway? Yeah, that's true. And I'm still going to do it because I can manage this. I can handle it, It's this attitude of openness. That's a mark of good recovery. Good recovery is you relating to those intrusive thoughts. You relating to those anxious states. You relating to it instead of resistance. So if you have this thought oh Lord, I'm just terribly anxious, instead of resisting and putting it down, arguing, no, I'm not, I'm fine. I should be fine. I shouldn't be anxious. Well, I'm anxious. Something's wrong about me being anxious. No. You can do the things I talked about in the other videos. You can treat it as a wounded child part, oh boy, that part of me must be feeling very insecure. It must need some compassion, must see love, calm down. Just like if you see a 7-year-old start getting upset, calm down, poor thing. You could talk back to it in to strip the importance out of it. Oh boy, your partner, my partner probably, she didn't call me the other day, probably doesn't love me. You can agree and amplify. Oh yeah, thank you, brain. That's really helpful. Yes, my partner didn't call me. Therefore, she's probably off, probably marrying my brother right now. Yeah, you're completely right, brain. Thank you. She's been stringing me along. Probably she cooked up this idea 10 years ago. She's probably been stalking me. Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you, brain. You're really helping me. You just exaggerate till it becomes very silly, whatever you do. And finally, this is what it really is. Everyone will probably think this is very hokey and cheesy, but I do believe this. I do believe any recovery of anything is an updated understanding of what love is. It's knowing what real love is. I feel like a bunch of stresses and mental illness is having the wrong ideas about what it is to love. Our expectations, what we think of other people, what we expect of ourselves is so wildly exaggerated. It just crushes us. If we say, I'm not supposed to be anxious. I'm not supposed to work this hard in this relationship. I'm not supposed, and they should be giving more, and I should be giving them more. I'm not good enough. Listen, people, we're just all human beings. We're just broken people. We're just struggling and getting by. It's a tough time in our history. We're not communal. We don't have a lot of supports. Everything's in flux. I don't know what to tell you. It's the human predicament. But we're just broken creatures, every one of us. We're all struggling. We're all suffering, all of us, You can't expect that much, Most people think of love as that engulfing infatuation, Butterflies in the stomach, that means nothing. But it's not. Love, people much smarter than me have taught me that love is really about those daily actions that you show someone you care, even when you don't want to. Even when it's the small daily actions. That's what maintains it. That's what provides the shape and will keep things afloat. Not some strong, powerful feeling, because your feelings will change. You'll hate that person. They'll be indifferent. Then you'll wonder why you're with them. Then this, then that, then. Yeah, that's how it is. Okay. But these little daily acts of commitment and faithfulness, it is what's going to hold love, long-term love, mature love, And you have to accept that we'll have difficult days and that our journey is going to look different from other people, People whose path provide an acquaintance with pain, they usually get to the heart of what it means to be alive very quickly, because they know exactly what is needed and what it's like not to feel alive and to feel dead, At the same time, you have to be able to live with uncertainty and discomfort. You have to live that. Just to do these maintenance things. Every day you're doing these little acts of love, thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be with this person 10 years. I don't even know if it's going to work out. I don't know. Is that okay? Is that okay? And the truth is that you have to prioritize. That should be your main thing, these mundane activities, because that's what creates the space for those powerful, close, intimate relationships. That's what makes it safe. If someone shows they love you day after day, year after year after year, you feel very safe being vulnerable, very safe to opening up. And that's where intimacy and love comes in. And people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, what's the big thing I can do to set this relationship on fire, to really get it? And it's not like that. It's all about intimacy. For instance, I worked on a farm once. I lived on a farm. I'm a city boy from the Bronx. No idea what to expect. I figured it's a farm. I'll be with animals all day. And indeed, I'd get up at 4 a.m. and I'd roll big 80-pound hay wheels to the horses, and then I'd feed these guys and the goats and this and that. By 7 a.m., I was done. Like, all that was done. Fed all the animals, everything I had to do was done. My day was over. Then, most of my day, the vast majority of my day, was fixing the fence. That was like 80% of the work. maintenance. Why? Because animals would bump into the fence and they would break and it would get warped and they would do this and there'd be a crack and this thing would be loose. And day after day after day, I never thought that would be my life. I never thought living on a farm was mostly maintenance. They call it fence maintenance. But anyone who lives on a farm with animals will tell you, indeed, that's a big part of it. And yet, I'm thinking like, no, it's all about the animals. And relationships are the same thing. Maintaining that fence, maintaining the fence, because we bump into it, we break it, we warp boundaries, we kind of rub against each other the wrong way. You have to go fix that fence every day, every day. Now, the good news, though, and this is true with your thoughts. You have intrusive thoughts, anxious thoughts. Every day you have to practice letting them happen, not arguing with them, not engaging in them, just noticing they're just thoughts. They don't have to mean anything. You can unblend from them, just let them happen. Who cares? Pay them a little attention, and you do that day after day after day, just making sure your fence is nice and tight. So the anxiety never grows. It never starts making decisions, doesn't lead to havoc in your life, What does that look like? I don't know. Maybe a meditation practice every day, prayer, a spirituality, asking for time out, taking a vacation, seeing a therapist, I don't know, doing yoga, going for a walk, whatever it is. The good thing, though, is that even though it's tedious, eventually it becomes intuitive. So at first it's like you have to sit there and be like, okay, I just noticed I'm having all these crazy thoughts. These are just thoughts. I don't have to engage in them. Let me just feel it, feel the emotions, feel it, just let it go through me. And then after doing that for a few months, though, it becomes pretty intuitive. I tell you, because I did it. And instead of like, you'll automatically, I'll be thinking, oh man, I'm not sure I should be with this partner. I always make the wrong decision. It never works out. I always end up in pain. Wait, what the hell am I thinking? And I'll just automatically like, well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but that's so extreme. And who cares? These thoughts, they don't serve me. Where was I going with that? Good Lord. And it's just automatic. So with anything, practice. And when it becomes intuitive, you have a mindset, you have a whole attitude towards the world, this kind of recovery mindset. And this is an attitude. It's a real attitude, and you have to cultivate it. And this is true. I don't care if you're in a 12-step program or recovering from any mental illness. You do have to have a particular attitude of willingness, acceptance, and tolerance of yourself, of those thoughts. You could sit there and be like, I hate having these thoughts and they're ruining it and I'm so anxious and I can't even have a relationship and this is hell. That's not going to help. That's a part of you. That's a part of you. And you're at war with a part of you. That doesn't serve you. That eggs them on. That makes things worse. And that's not a recovery mindset. The mindset is I accept, okay, this is who I am. I have anxious thoughts. They don't mean anything. It's part of me. I'm going to go live my life. And if someone doesn't like it, they want to be with me, and they don't like it, I don't blame them. But this is who I am, And after a while, you kind of barely notice the extra work it takes to keep that mindset. It just happens. It's just this attitude of willingness, acceptance, and tolerance, The other thing about what it looks like when you're recovered, when you're insecure, you're a secure person. Secure people usually feel the exact same things insecure people do. It's just they vocalize it, they tell people, they make requests, they know it, so they recognize it, and they say, oh, this is happening. And usually it doesn't last that long. They go and they get help, they reach out, something like that. But it doesn't matter. Even if you're 100% secure, you'll have wonderful days where you're in love. And you absolutely will have days where you'll wake up with your brain spinning and the whole world will feel dark and impossible. I can't do this. This relationship is not going to work out. I can't do this at my job. I can't. You're going to have days like that Everyone does. You know how many husbands I know that have just what I said? They're almost terrified to leave the house. And they've been married. Now, if I ask their wives, like, oh, you think your husband's no, never. He's never actually gets up. He does what he has to do. He handles things. And it's like, meanwhile, the guy's ready to have a heart attack. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Everyone has it. But here's the thing. Both those things, having really good days and having really bad days, are part of recovery. The good days, like, oh, this part of recovery, this is part of the sickness. No. Both those are part of the human experience. Those both are part of it. Even when you're secure, that's going to happen. Because it's not a destination. It's not bliss. It's not connection. Being human is not a fixed destination, It's a state of mind. It's an attitude of flexibility, willingness to keep those thoughts in check, even on tough days. So except I wake up and well, listen, this is me. Some days I wake up and I just feel awful. Does it mean I'm in the wrong relationship? No. Does it mean anything? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm not even I don't have to worry about it. This is me. I expect it. I'm human. And just because I have a week where I feel awful, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. Maybe something is. Maybe something is wrong. But it doesn't have to mean that. Maybe I'm just feeling insecure. I don't know. It's just how the mind works, This happens all the time with clients. They come in and they're doing good, and then they come in and I got crestfallen. I'm backsliding. I'm losing my progress because they had a bad week. No, that's part of the progress. That's not backsliding either, even though people won't believe it. It's true. That's a detour. You think you're going to go here to here in a straight line. That never happens. And what's happening is not you going, all the way back here. No, it's a detour. To get to the next point, you might have to go into a crazy route and then go up and then another crazy route and then another crazy route. That's how it happens. A bad week. But how do you know if you're backsliding or not? Because your attitude towards it. Is your attitude when you have that bad week like, I'm doomed, and da-da? Or do you sit there and be like, I'm doomed, and this is terrible. Wait. Doomed. This is just my thoughts. Hold on. Let me be flexible with this. These are just thoughts. I'm doomed. Everything. I know this radio program, doom and gloom. Oh yeah, play this again. Yeah, I'm doomed. Everything's doomed. And da-da-da. Okay, I can deal with this. I can let it happen. I can allow it. I can accept that that's where I am right now. Well, you're making progress. You're on the road to recovery. You're on the right route, And if you have this attitude, there will be detours. This is very important. Because if you don't know there will be detours, if you don't expect it, you will think it's not working. You will think you're going backwards. But if you expect detours, then you're like, I'm in a detour. And guess what? This is temporary. And when it's over, I can get right back on a straight line for as long as I can. Expect it. It's going to happen. It does not mean you're getting worse or you're going backwards. It doesn't mean that, I'd also like to mention, particularly in that, transitional periods. This is huge. So I meet people and they do great, right? And whether people won't talk about this, but any therapist, coach, whatever you get, that inner work is only part of it. That can only ever be part of it. Because the truth is, I know people, they have no job, no girl, no friends, no purpose, no spirituality. Well, I can work with you and we can get some inner security, certainly. I doubt it will go very quickly, and I doubt you're going to feel very secure, because I wouldn't. If I didn't know that I can make rent next month, I'd be very anxious. I don't care how secure. If I had no friends, no one to count on, I'd feel very lonely. I mean, and that most likely in today's society, you're going to have to go through periods of that. If I had no spirituality, if I had no higher virtues, if I had nothing to lean on. So that is just one thing. And you have to realize that yourself is a context. How you feel will depend on the context of your life, you know. So some people, like I'll meet them, and 6 months later, oh, they find the perfect job. They buy a house, and they meet someone. And all of a sudden, they're cured. They're cured. They feel great. Perhaps their lives just got really good, and they're feeling a lot of security. And in a few months, when things go downhill, as they will, you know, and hopefully, you know, go up and down, that's life. Hopefully, they'll remain secure. But if they're not, that's just about the environment, you know. But the same thing happens on the other foot. So people will be doing very good, and then transitional time will come in. They'll move. Moving is one of the most stressful things on the planet. They'll lose their job, and they'll be looking for a job. Oh, listen, everyone knows sending out resumes, doing interviews is one of the most stressful things in the world. So stressful. And men particularly do terrible when they're not working. I have friends, and they lose their job, and in a few months, they're sleeping till noon, and they wake up, they eat a pizza, they're just falling apart. And, if it's a client I see, they'll be like, or the wedding's coming up, and all of a sudden they'll be feeling very anxious, very insecure, and they'll think, it's not working, recovery's not happening, I must be going backwards. No. Your life circumstances changed, and now you have a lot more stress. So of course you're more anxious. Of course. The other thing that happens is transitions that are supposed to be happy will also produce a lot of anxiety, you know. Happy changes cause our anxiety to spike. Most people don't know that. Happy changes. So I know people who are women who get pregnant, they're going to become mothers. And as it goes on, they get more and more anxious, more and more dysregulated. And then they think, why am I feeling so bad? Do I not want to be a mother? Is this wrong? Does this mean that I made the wrong choice? No, that means anything. It means that you're feeling very, maybe you did make the wrong choice. I don't know. But don't go by the anxiety. That will not tell you. Your anxiety just tells you about you. You are feeling insecure. Of course. Or people who are getting married, and they think, like, boy, I'm getting married. I have to say, I do not feel joyous. I feel, if anything, anxious and dread. Does that mean I'm making the wrong decision? I'm telling you, maybe you are. I don't know. But don't go by that, because any transition will have a lot of anxiety, even happy things, even things that are happy, because there's grief even in there. Any transitional stage will be destabilizing, you know. Well, there's lifestyle triggers too. You know, it's a good idea to get your triggers down regardless, you know. We all have those. You probably know them, but, lack of sleep. You know, I don't get a lot of sleep. I'm more anxious, poor nutrition, alcohol, diet, caffeine, burning yourself out, all these things can also, monthly hormonal changes. Like, pay attention to those things too, and just know, am I going backwards, or am I just really overextended right now and burnt out? Well, there's a difference, So to recognize the difference, But I was saying any transitional change involves grief, and part of recovery is grieving. That's part of it, Grief, because even a happy transition means you lose something. You're getting married, you gain a lot. But now you grieve your life as a single person. It's over. You're becoming a mother, of course, it could be joyous. But let's be honest, you're also now giving up a lot of self-sacrifice, you are. So it's okay. You could be both. You could be very joyous and excited about that, but also very anxious and very reticent because of the stuff you're giving up, So if a mother comes to me and says, I'm very anxious about having this child, does that mean I want the child? to me, it makes perfect sense that you'd be anxious. Of course, you're giving up so much. Of course. You know? Yet, people do become very rigid. And they're like, oh, no, that means something's wrong if I'm having anxiety. You know? Then they start having shame. Oh, I feel so ashamed. I'm becoming a mother. Shouldn't I be happy all the time? Shouldn't I be joyous all the time? Am I a bad person? Does this mean I'm going to be a bad mother? Oh, Lord, listen, it means none of that. Forget all about that. It does not mean the direction you've chosen is wrong. You know? It doesn't. It means there's grieving in there. There's grieving. You know? You're forsaking an old identity. You're transitioning, you know? And I've never seen it. And when you go through that, you feel like groundedlessness. Because like, what am I? I was this, now I'm going to be a mother. I was single, now I'm going to be married. And you're transitioning, and you can't get your feet down. And it's very dysregulating. That'll happen no matter how secure you are, you know. And the grieving is natural. I've never seen anyone get well without experiencing sadness at the thought that, let's be honest, those deeply held wishes and desires, you know, for what you thought your life would look like. And you have to grieve that. You look around. This is not what I planned. This is not how I thought I would be. This is not how I thought things would be. I had an idea of who I'd become. And I'm not that person. My life is not that. And it's sad. And you do have to grieve for it. That doesn't mean you have to regret it, by the way. You know, that doesn't mean you grieve because it's a bad story or it's a horror story or has a sad ending. You grieve because it's not the story you wanted or expected. Maybe this story you're living will prove to be better. Maybe this story you're living will help a lot of people. Maybe this story has a higher meaning. I have no idea. But I do know that there's grief when you see that this isn't the story you wanted, you know. You want. And meanwhile, while you're maintaining the fence to make sure they're staying connected to yourself and to others, at the same time, part of this grieving is about how lonely it can be. A lot of people don't understand me. So many times I'd want to explain to them. You've probably felt the same way. Like, there's a reason I'm like this. There's a reason I'm acting like this. There's a reason I did this. And it's perfectly rational. And it makes complete sense. And if you only knew what it felt like, you would probably do the same thing. You would act the same way. But they don't understand. And that could be the people closest to us. Often it is. It's our own partners, our mother, our friends. And you're just alone. You're just alone with this thing. And that's sad. That's how you can handle it. And I'm a big believer in community, you know. Find people like you, go to a 12-step group, get a therapist, a coach, whoever, so you can talk about those things. Nevertheless, a big part of recovery is lonely. It can be, you know. People don't know what it's like. For instance, I'm not a very anxious person. So, you know, I've had partners who, one girl a girlfriend turned to me and goes, do you know what it's like to live with doubt as your constant companion? I wake up, I doubt everything. Did I choose the right career? Did I choose the right this? Did I choose the right dress? Have I made this payment? Should I bought this? Maybe it was a mistake. Do you know what that's like? I don't know what that's like. And I wish I did, just so I can empathize and be there for her, but I didn't. And that was the fact. And that was a cross that she had to carry all by herself. She could tell me, and I'd try to understand. But she really couldn't talk to me about that sort of thing, you know. You have to grieve. You actually have to. Because that's the only way you can allow the experience of anxiety to transform you, to transfigure you, to change you. And to do that, I mean, this is about attitude. You're basically, if you want to be recovered, you're being asked to look at pain as a way, as a portal into living more fully. Really? Because most people look at pain and they say, hey, that is an experience that I will avoid no matter what the cost. Instead of feeling rejection and abandoned, I will just stay in bed. Okay? Okay. But this is the way. The way of pain is the way to life. And people who don't want to feel anxiety don't want to live. Life, real life, is in those moments of uncertainty. It's in the gray areas, it's not in the black and white places. You have to be uncertain. To be uncertain is a good thing. I know it sounds bad, but it actually is a good thing, you know. And before you can experience pain that way, as a means of transforming you, as a means to life, before you can truly embrace that discomfort, before you can get to that place, you have to grieve about what you lost, you know. So I might see someone who's 40 and never been in a relationship. And I can tell you right now, like whatever relationship you get into, you're not going to experience the young love. You're not going to experience discovering all those little things when you're young and exploring. You're not going to have all that. You're just not. You lost that, you know. You gained other things. You made other choices. And by the way, the fact that you didn't experience that, is that a bad thing? It is what it is. Your mind can attach meaning to it. Oh, that means I'm a loser. That means this. That means that. Okay, that's you. You're attaching that meaning to it. Maybe society's attaching meaning to it. Who cares what they think? Who cares what you think? You know? But you do have to grieve, because that is something sad, you know? Being sad, again, does not mean you made the wrong decision, or that you trade your life now for another. Because I've been through terrible things, yet they led me to meet X, Y, and Z people, and they led me here, there, and there. And so I wouldn't trade it. I would not want a different life, you know. I would not want an easier one, you know. But good recovery always involves encounters with grief, because all growth involves the shedding away of the old ways of thinking and being, and taking on new ways of being. Shedding hurts. I mean, it hurts. It's painful. But if you're grieving, truly, there's a good chance you're growing. You know, if you're grieving the right way, you're not using it as an excuse, you know. There's wrong ways to grieve, too. A lot of people grieve as a way to, they think this, like, especially when a loved one dies. Loved one dies, and they grieve, and they grieve, and they grieve. Why? Because the grieving, they believe, keeps them connected to that person. Number one. Number two, they feel a moral duty. If I don't grieve, that means I didn't love that person. I would suggest that that's very perverse, and that the grieving is actually preventing you from being in communion with that person, you know, with their memory, with the spirit of who they were. And I'd also suggest that that grieving proves nothing, because I know people that, in fact, usually it's the opposite, not the opposite, but you know how many people I knew, I had a friend who just complained about her husband constantly, hated it, complained. Ooh, well, he died some years ago, and she's still grieving. And I'm mystified, because I was like, you hated this man, hated him, and yet she's grieving all the time. So you think like, oh, she's grieving. She must have really loved her husband. Maybe. I think rather she feels guilty that she didn't, and she's holding on to it. But regardless, holding on to it does not prove your love. It does not bring you closer to the person. It doesn't help anything, you know. That type of grieving prevents forward movement, prevents growth. I know that's a hard thing to say. It's one of those hard truths. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I don't think so. Francis Weller, you know, I wrote that book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow. You know, he points out the strange intimacy between grief and aliveness. He calls it the sacred exchange between what seems unbearable and what is most alive. Because that's what happens when you allow full-bodied grief in. You become most alive. It's almost like you head into the darkness and you emerge into the light, with a guide. Because you're in that darkness, your eyes are now very sensitive and everything appears brighter and even more colorful. One of the things to grieve, which is huge, and I have a hard time, I've had a hard time with myself, and I think everyone does, is what I talked about at the beginning of this series, the ROCD series, Relationship OCD. Just like that one thought that seems to just ruin people. It causes so much problems that, there's the one out there. There's one person. And not only is there a specific person for me, they're going to save me. This loneliness I feel in my heart is going to go away. The meaninglessness, they're going to save me from myself. And that's bullshit. That'll never happen, But that thought has gone many people, even though it's wrong, through a lot of hard times. Think about it. So many times things are rough and you're lonely and you're thinking, yeah, but maybe one day I'll find the one. So you keep on going, Maybe I'll find that person who could take away my pain. Maybe I'll find the one who'll soothe my fears, Now eventually you get older and you realize that's a myth. Even after you realize that, it's still very painful to let go. It's so painful. It doesn't matter, it's not true. Part of you wants to believe it's true, That's something to grieve. That's something to grieve, that you no longer believe in that. You no longer have that thing to pull you forward, to rely on. Because, the feeling that loneliness, believe me, everyone wants to get married to relieve the loneliness. There are different levels of loneliness. So the above levels, yes, that does do quite a lot, and you'll be much more regulated. They've done studies, people who are unmarried, they'll kind of prick them, and the pain will be like a 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. They'll prick someone who's married, and the pain will be 2 or 3, discomfort. Being married makes a big difference in your health. But there's a deeper loneliness, the one that we really want filled. And for that, you need to go to spirituality. You need to go to God, a monastery, a hike in the woods, something wondrous and transcendental. You're not going to find another human being. You're just not going to find it. You're still going to have those deep fears, even with them. They won't be able to soothe you. They will not be able to take away that deep loneliness, And that's something to grieve for. You have to realize, you have to give up. At a certain point, you have to give up the certainty that you might never achieve a relationship. I don't know. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll never have that perfect relationship. And that's sad. Maybe you will, but you have to give up the certainty, like, no, it's going to happen. And then every year it doesn't happen, you're crushed, Every time you go on a date, it doesn't work out. Oh, my Lord, it's like God has abandoned me. You have to give that up, or else you'll crush that person. You'll be crushed, and your anxiety will be out of control. If those are the stakes. The stakes are much lower. They're having a companion, someone to regulate you, a partner, but with plenty of ups and downs and plenty of uncertainty and anxiety. That's what it is. That's what it is, You have to grieve this idea of having a painless connection, that's free from doubt and discomfort. As soon as I find the one, I can know this is the one, I'm certain, marry, and then that's the direction my life's supposed to be in. That'll never happen. You will, at some point, marry that person thinking it's right. And then after a couple years thinking, was it the right thing to do? Imagine you stayed single. Weren't there things you can do? Or 5 years in, you meet another woman, another guy who seems almost better, maybe, better fit for you. That could happen. We meet a lot of people. Wouldn't surprise me if you met someone who's a better fit, And you're going to have doubts. What am I doing here? Should I get a divorce? What am I doing? That's part of the relationship. Even the most secure people have that, What will happen is your brain will get sharper if you use these techniques I've talked about, Recently, someone was like, well, they're saying, I haven't had sex with my partner in a couple of weeks. That kind of means that there's no chemistry. If there's no chemistry, it's not going to work out. And then they thought immediately, like, wait a minute, that doesn't mean that's true. All that talk is hollow content. That's just the brain yapping. And they heard that, their brain yapping that, and it's like, get out of here. I'm not even gonna entertain that. Like, okay, yeah, sure. I wasn't sexually attracted for whatever, a couple weeks. Oh, that means it's all over, and yeah, and then we're done, and the whole relationship meant nothing. Oh, thank you, brain. Whatever. In other words, they get to the point where they still have these thoughts, but they don't drill down into their head. They're not automatic. You can talk to self-compassion, like, oh, it's been a while since intimacy. Oh, I must be feeling really insecure. Maybe I need to talk to that person. Maybe I feel disconnected. Maybe it's a wounded child coming up saying, hey, I'm being ignored. And you have some compassion for yourself, And since your brain has been trained to scan for problems, like a spotlight looking everywhere, as soon as it keeps bringing you these things and you just ignore it, like, oh, I haven't, okay, fine, whatever. Oh, I'm not certain if I love my brother. Who cares? I don't have to be certain. As soon as you have those reactions, the brain's like, this person doesn't seem to be very concerned about these thoughts. I guess they're not a big deal. They start to lose their power. But what is interesting is as they lose their power, that vigilance, that spotlight, continue searching. Psychologists call it the lighthouse effect. So perhaps you've experienced this, like you're okay, everything's okay, but your brain's still searching for something, a story, something to hold on to. And you've probably seen this people who pick fights a lot. So they're feeling very insecure. And then their brain goes looking, why are you feeling insecure? Look. Oh, everything's okay. Job's okay. Wife's okay. But it's still so used to finding something, it'll just make something up. Oh, wait a minute. And then that guy will start picking a fight, and it'll be about the fight. When really that person should say, hey, honey, I don't know, I'm feeling a little squirrely. Let me get a hug. Let's talk. Let's hang out. Let me pick up the phone, call my buddy. That's the right thing. Because that lighthouse will still be there looking for something. Beware of that. The final thing about recovery is people resist getting well. And it makes sense. Because people hold a lot of fears about what it means to feel good, what it means to be safe, dropping your guard, being vulnerable, exposing yourself. Whoa, that the lighthouse, returning off the lighthouse, stop searching. Oh, what if there's danger, And you kind of have to ask yourself, is it okay? Is it okay to be okay? Would that be okay? And really, I would, and I do this with my client, I would seriously ask yourself that out loud. Say, is it okay for me to feel okay? Truly. And a lot of times I do that, and I'm like, but really feel into it, feel your bodily response. Does it feel true? Many times people tell me no. Why not? Well, because think about it. If I feel okay, then it almost means all the things I've been through are meaningless. It's almost like I'm saying all the deprivation I suffered through, all the hardship, all the unjustness, all the perhaps abuse or trauma happened, and then I'm like supposed to say, oh, but that's okay. I'm just going to be happy. Oh, let's forget all that happened. Oh, well, too bad. Like it didn't matter. Like what happened was okay. What happened to me was not okay. What happened to me was devastating. Whatever it was, deprivation, trauma, just life. But it's not okay because it caused fantastic suffering in my life, dragged me down to hell more than once. And I clawed myself out of there, barely. So no, it's not okay to be okay, It's interesting, but it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Because wearing our wounds is proof that we did suffer. And don't we all want to be acknowledged? Don't we want our suffering to be witnessed? And isn't there something perverse about just saying like, oh, sure, Daddy used to beat me, but now I'm just going to live my life and be happy and just forget about that? No. But think about it. So that's true. Whatever happened, you happened, and you can witness to it. You can witness to it in two different ways, from a place of pain. Like, look at me. Look at me. Look how I suffer. And that's because of my life. And that's because of things I've been through. And I'm not going to pretend they didn't. I'm not going to put on the happy face. This is me, scars and all. It's not pretty, but that's what it is. Or you can witness it from a place of strength. Again, what happened to me was not okay. But I'm okay. Despite, not because it was despite what happened being not okay. And I'm going to witness what happened to me was not okay. From a place of strength. And I'm going to share what happened to me because it helps other people. And I'm going to listen when other people have been through the same things. And I'm going to show you can still live a life even after that. And I'm going to show that from a place of strength. The reason I say this is because years and years ago, I met supposedly the last living survivor of Dr. Mengele. This is many years, like 20 years ago. Dr. Mengele was that Nazi doctor at Auschwitz. They call him Dr. Death. Something you have a comic book. Don't look up on him. He's just one of the most horrific people on the planet. But she was, her children anyway, were some of his last victims. She was one of the last survivors. And gosh, she must have been in her 90s, I guess, at the time. Oof, what a vivacious lady. What a vivacious lady. I figured you go through that, and you're just angry all the time. Look what happened. Look at the injustice. Look what the world did to me. That was not her attitude at all. She was vivacious. She was on fire. She still wanted to help people. She was involved in different things. She was smiling. She made jokes. Oh, she was alive. And she witnessed these terrible things from a place of strength. Impressive. Far more than I could do, but impressive. And that made a more powerful impression on me, Now, to do that, you have to actively rewire your brain, who thinks feeling good or feeling relaxed is going to lead to getting hurt. And that means challenging our thoughts, behaviors, and attention. We have this belief like, dropping guard is stupid, it's naive, connecting to another person is dangerous. So the work is to trust. What do you trust? That everything's going to be okay? No, because it probably won't be. It might not be. You have no idea if it will be. It's trust that you'll be okay, no matter what happens. And guess what? You don't know that. I can get into a relationship tomorrow where I think it's okay, but who knows? I can get my heart torn out and have a mental breakdown, end up in the mental ward. Boy, that happens to people all the time. Why couldn't that happen to me? It could. I don't know. Yet, so it's faith. Like, it's not a certainty. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't have to be certain. I have faith that why? Well, I've been through a lot of things. Does that mean in the future I will continue to? No. So I can't be certain. And I don't know if that's true, but this serves me, this way of thinking is like, I'm going to do it anyway because it's worth the risk, because I think I will be okay. I think I can handle it. Am I certain? No, but I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to trust myself. It's knowing that though that road is difficult, full of detours, you have enough strength to cope. You always have options. And a lot of times you might think like, well, me, I don't. And the truth is, me, Jonathan, I don't. I rarely. Sometimes I've been over my head so many times. And then someone said to me like, well, that's when the universe gives you too much on your plate. That's kind of God or the universe saying you need to share your plate. And that was her very gentle, nice way of telling me, go get help. I can't do it myself. Resources. Maybe you can't, but then you can get help. You can handle it. If it comes to the point where you're overwhelmed, you can reach out, ask for help, find someone to help you. There are people, But it's that faith that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay no matter what happens. And it's not blind either, because I have a lot of clients, and I look back and I'm like, but you survived this, and survived this, and survived this. Things that might have killed me or another person. And something inside you didn't give up. Something nurtured you to continue to, And yet now you're worried about a breakup? Or you're worried about this marriage? I'm sure it will be painful. I don't know if you'll get through it. I don't know if you'll be okay. But I gotta say, looking at your past, pretty good chance you will be. The other thing about our thoughts is you actually can't experience anxiety in the present moment. You experience dread, panic. Anxiety is always about a future thing. And if you notice, your thoughts about a thing feel a lot different than actually doing the thing. So my thoughts, I'll go to a dinner with a bunch of people, and I'll be nervous because this person's very famous and has a sharp mouth, and what if I say something stupid? And in my mind, I'll be very embarrassed, and I'll panic, and it'll be terrible. Well, nothing's happened. I'm actually just reacting to a thought in my head. But then I think, okay, that's me worrying. Now let me do another thought experiment. What would it be like if I really did? Okay, so I imagine myself there. I sit down. He says this, and I say the stupidest thing on the planet. And how'd that feel? Ooh, yeah, I feel my chest getting tight, and I feel a little anxious and a little uncomfortable, and it would be embarrassing. But whatever. And then I'd get over it. I'd go home. I'd be fine. Ooh, wow, imagine me doing the thing. It's a lot different than me worrying about the thing. And once you realize you worrying about the thing is often worse than if the thing happened. You know? Not that the thing happening is good. Not that it'll be different. So if you take for God's word that your prediction of this thing will be what's like, it's going to be false. I don't know what it'll be like. Maybe it will be panicky. Maybe it will have dread. But it will be different. You can count on that. And most likely you can handle it. The things that destroy us are always the things in our head. It's the thought of things going wrong. When things actually get wrong, I got to tell you, a lot of us just deal with it. A lot of us like pick up, man up, and woof, we take care of it. And we do it, you know. Sometimes with help, sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it takes time to process. But worse than the thing happening is usually the 6 months previous of us manically worrying about what if it happens. That's what cripples us, you know, often. Not all the time, so these are generalizations. But anyway, I just wanted to give a picture of what recovery is, what it looks like, what you'd expect. And it's a bit different than what a lot of people expect. And a lot of people expect some magic pill. And I tell you, a lot of therapists and coaches, they never clarify. They never clarify what you can expect and what you ought to be looking for, what things will be like if this thing works, you know. And also, I will say a lot of times I'll try and tell someone and they don't want to hear it. Like, they'll stop me right away. I'm like, well, what do you think it looks like? Well, because I can tell you. And they'll stop, because they still want to believe that this magical thing can happen. And it'll be so devastating if I sit there and tell them, like, oh, no, you'll still have this. It'll be a lot different, but you'll still have it. You'll deal with it differently, but you'll say, no. Just that is like, oof, no, don't tell me that, you know. But I'm telling you, it's a lot different. And people do love. They live full lives and they feel alive even with all these imperfections because they experience them and relate to them very differently. And that does cause them to go down. Anyway, Jonathan McCormick, FamilyAttachmentHealingHelp.com. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.